I think the Orlando Magic did something extremely impressive last season. They took a season that should have been a nightmare and they turned it into something that they could really build off of coming into this NBA season that we're currently getting ready for. And why I say it should have been a nightmare for the Orlando Magic is because that they were plagued by a very nasty injury bug. They had injuries to their role players. They had injuries at the top of the roster to some of the best guys on the team. And when we look at their three best players, Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner, and Jalen Suggs, not only are they the three best players on the Orlando Magic, but these are three of the most best impactful players in all of the NBA. Last season, these three guys were just able to get a combined of 6 games in last season for the Orlando Magic, and they all were going through their own sort of injuries individually. When we look at Jalen Suggs, only playing 30 games for the Orlando Magic last season. We look at Paolo Banchero, I believe he played 46 games, and then Franz Wagner played the most out of the trio for the Orlando Magic. He played 60 games. So you add all of those games up, that's a combined 105 missed games from the team's best 3 players. And we can look throughout the roster, also some key nagging injuries to some of their best players. When we look at a guy like Wendell Carter, it took him a while, to get warmed up, to get into rhythm for this season, dealing with those ankle injuries and those lower body injuries. And we look at Franz Wagner's brother, Mo Wagner, who went down not with a nagging injury, but a significant injury, keeping him out for the season. Only 30 games on the year for the Orlando Magic, and he was one of their top bench contributors. So the Orlando Magic going through all of this injury, I tell you all of this and you probably think that they missed the playoffs, but instead the Orlando Magic, they were able to hold the fort down while those guys were going through those injuries, coming in and out of the lineup. They keep their season strong enough to get a spot in the play-in tournament, and they make the playoffs as they 7th seed. And I think this is so big time for the Orlando Magic because they had guys step up on the team that showed them that they have a lot to work with when we look at the role players and the depth on this team. So the first thing I actually want to look at before we get into the roster and how guys performed last season, guys that weren't Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner, and Jalen Suggs that helped the Orlando Magic hold down the fort and get to the playoffs. But I think it would be wrong to start off without talking about the front office of the Orlando Magic and talking about Coach Mosley, because these guys have been doing a great job. When we look at this roster makeup of the Orlando Magic, it is quite unique, and most of it has been built through the NBA draft. When we look at all of these tall, versatile, athletic guys that they have, every position they have elite size. When we look at Jalen Suggs and we look at Anthony Black, 2 tall, athletic point guards that were drafted by the Orlando Magic. We move to the wing position. When we look at guys like Paolo Banchero, 6'10", a lean 250 pounds, very athletic. We look at Franz Wagner being 6'10", being very athletic for his size. And when we look at a Jonathan Isaac, who was drafted, a little while ago, but still adds to that elite size and versatility that the Orlando Magic brings to the table. So they have so much elite athleticism and length out there on the basketball court. Versatile at the big position as well with, Goga Batadze and Wendell Carter Jr., Mo Wagner when he's healthy. So a very, very unique roster that the Orlando Magic have. So much size on their team. And then we get to their coach. We get to their coach Mosley. Now, last season, I think he proved a lot for the Orlando Magic. I think he proved that they have a winning philosophy in play and they have a winning game plan in play. They have a philosophy and game plan to lean on when their best players are not available. And that's something that we see when we see dynasties and we see teams that win multiple championships and we see teams that's consistently get into the playoffs. They're able to fight through that injury bug off their game plan, off their coach and off their team morals. And in the Orlando Magic, they become one of those teams to where their philosophy makes them a much more dangerous basketball team. And it's going to have them in just about every single basketball game. And we look at that philosophy, it starts on the defensive side of the ball. We talked about how the Orlando Magic have all of these players with tremendous size, athleticism, and length. And now they have a head coach in their ears really expressing them to get after it on the defensive side of the ball. That's why the Orlando Magic once again finishes top top 3 in the NBA in defensive rating, and also where we just have to give the Coach Mosley more props at is that he's missing a all NBA defender, one of the best point of attack defenders in the NBA, and Jalen Suggs for 50+ games on the season. And the Orlando Magic still finishes top 3 in the NBA in defensive rating. So when I seen that, I just thought that was very impressive, and that's why I say we have to give a lot of credit to the front office and to Coach Mosley, because they're doing everything by committee on the defensive side of the ball, on the offensive side of the ball as well. We never seen the Orlando Magic dealing with all these injuries to try different guys out on the basketball court, go deep in their rotation and see what they can find, see what they can develop, why some of their guys are healing. And when the Orlando Magic started to do this, I think they found out a lot about a couple of their guys, about how impactful they can be going into next season, seeing what they could do when they were asked to step up for the Orlando Magic. And the first player I want to bring up, I want to talk about Jonathan Isaac with you guys. Now, I know we look at his numbers, we look at his minutes per game. And for any other NBA player, we want to look at it like it was anything too impressive. But I thought last season for Jonathan Isaac, this was a huge step forward in his NBA career, because we know so far it's been plagued by so much injuries, and this was really unfortunate just seeing the way or the potential that he had to defend the basketball, and it's still there. But just to think about what Jonathan Isaac could have been if he never went through those crazy injuries, he could have been some type of defender that we never seen before. But last season for the Orlando Magic, Jonathan Isaac was more available than he's ever been. He played 71 games for the Orlando Magic, not only 15 minutes per game, but still he was there 71 times for the Magic, which is a huge step forward. And he still showed that he can be very, very impactful on the defensive side of the ball, still able to guard multiple positions, still able to rebound, still able to get steals, block shots. So I thought we seen a lot from Jonathan Isaac, that he could be a real wild card for the Orlando Magic going into next season. So hopefully he can get that from 15 minutes per game to around 20+ minutes, because he brings some things to the defensive side of the ball that you can't get from a lot of guys on planet Earth. So you have Jonathan Isaac, who stepped up last season for the Orlando Magic, playing in small spurts, but playing high energy, making high impact plays. And then we have some young guys on this team who showed that they have some really developmental potential for the Orlando Magic. One guy that I seen a lot from was rookie Tristan de Silva, who had to step up and start 30+ games for the Orlando Magic as a rookie. But the Orlando Magic, they knew what they were doing when they were drafting him, because he was an experienced college player. And if I'm not mistaken, I want to say he played 4 years at the collegiate level. So he has a lot of basketball experience, a lot of high pressurized moments, which is maybe why he was ready to step into that role that he stepped in for the Orlando Magic. But he played some very, very solid minutes. He looked really good. His production as a starter elevated to when he was coming off the bench, so that was big time. And he was just a player out there that did what the Orlando Magic needed, or fitted their scheme on the defensive side of the ball, being another big wing with size that can guard multiple positions, and then offensively knowing when to be in the right spot at the right time, running the floor hard, weaving in transition, knocking down spot-up threes, and then just being a good cutter in the half court. So I saw a lot from Tristan de Silva. And I think he could be really intricate around Franz Wagner, around Paolo Banchero, now Desmond Bain, and then Jalen Suggs coming back. So I like what I've seen from Tristan de Silva, another young guy that I think has some promising potential, Anthony Black. I think what everybody is loving about him is his size. He stands at 6'7", supremely athletic, and he also showed that he fits that defensive mold for the Orlando Magic last season. He can be a pest on the defensive side of the ball, going through all of this, going through the injury going through the injury bug last season, an injury at his position. Jalen Suggs, Anthony Black stepped up in the elevator role this season for the Orlando Magic, doubling his minutes from his rookie season, playing 24 minutes per game and being impactful enough for his team to depend on him for those 24 minutes. So I thought those two guys getting in that action last season for the Orlando Magic is going to help them be better right now, but also help them be better in the future because they got a good glimpse of what it could be like for them to be in those starting, in those starting roles. And they played some really good basketball. And they weren't just playing better basketball, playing better individually, and it wasn't leading to team success for the Orlando Magic, but they really helped out. When we look at, Paolo Banchero, who missed an extensive amount of time for the Magic, who is the best player, he missed 36 games. In those 36 games, the Orlando Magic, they go 20-16. And that's one area where the Orlando Magic, where they did get lucky, is that, they didn't have to go too long without having at least Paolo Banchero or Franz Wagner. Those guys proved enough that they are good enough to be on the court by themselves, and they can carry the Orlando Magic, keep them where they need to be at in playoff competition, a competitive ball club, and a shot at the playoffs. So that's why I'm saying the Orlando Magic, they took that season that could have been, a lot of torque. It could have been very bad. They could have been at the bottom of the standings in the NBA lottery, but they were able to develop some of their young talent, get into the playoffs, and I think they really have something nice to build off of going into next season, especially with all of these guys coming back, and then the addition of Desmond Bane. I think they have the potential to make a lot of noise. But that's what I wanted to talk about with you guys today. If you enjoyed, please leave a like, comment down below how you feel about the role players on the Orlando Magic. Let me know if I missed anybody who also stood out for these guys and stepped up to help them get back into, and help them stay afloat and make them, let them get to the playoffs consecutive years. And subscribe for more weekly content. We do this all the time, man. And that's curtains.